Okay, welcome team to the perfect trade setup. Right now, this is something that everyone should be aware of, right? And this is all I'm searching for every other day of the week is what is the perfect trade? Is there one in play at the moment? Now, this with a lot of stuff going on, change of sites from WordPress to ClickFunnels, we're going to get back to our old website sort of back end system. It's a little bit more robust than this one. But in saying that, the whole what we're doing is when we're looking for, as I said, a trade setup, it really comes down to the pre-trade routine. And not that we've got away from it, but we've got so much content in the back end system that it can get a little bit pushed aside a touch, right? You've got all the courses to go through, and one of the things we are focusing on is getting people into the sort of the game changer trading system, right, to start with, and then start going through the technicals and fundamentals and these things. But funnily enough, the game changer trading system, it has the pre-trade routine built into it. Okay. And you may not sort of realize that. I know some of you guys have been around for some time that you would see, and I've just refreshed the page, so we'll get the live signals updated. The live signals is basically three-quarters of the pre-trade routine automated, right? It's a cheat sheet to your analysis. It is a quick way to, instead of going through all your charts and looking through all the various things trying to find that perfect trade, this is getting us very close to that point where you know what, we can say we've got the perfect trade set up. So, and coming back to that, now a lot of you, if you haven't actually already got this, you should find it in your, if I go into my profile here, you go into downloads, okay, and you'll have your orders, courses that you've got access to, as well as well, that's going to sort of upload now. So you got all the courses there, but the downloads is the key part. And what I want to come back down to is really focusing on the pre-trade routine, right? And I just downloaded this a short while ago. Now, for some traders, this may be completely new, right? Before we had the live signals, this was the sort of go-to that you would, and I have it on my desk, right? And, looking at the pre-trade routine on a daily basis is exactly what we were looking for. But you know what it's like? It's like going back into the 70s where you had to get off your backside to go and change the TV channel to now where we've got one control to about 20 different networks, flick of a button, and you're watching something live across the world, right? It's a different world. So basically what I'm getting back to is the easier something is, the more you will use it. And I know a lot of traders, when they first start, this is a great way for us to sort of break down the perfect trade setup. Now, let me just sort of cover what the perfect trade looks like, just on the pre-trade routine. Then I'll show you the charts and then and really tie it together with the live signals, right? So there's three components. The pre-trade routine, and this is one thing. Actually, I'll bring in, as I go through this part, the live signals, because you can actually see the current market direction, right? We're looking for short-term and long-term direction to generally line up. And when they do, okay, it tells us you're either a buyer or a seller. Now, trading, people make it super hard, right? If you've only just got this part of the equation, it's not enough, right? The perfect trade does include direction. It includes the extra addition, direction and momentum. Well, that comes with the economic data, the fundamentals, right? And then you've got the entry of the trade, right? Looking at a technical or at market, and really momentum is a massive part of the trading equation. So now the live trade signals, it does cover a lot of these things, right? You've still got to go and have a look at the technicals, and this is what we want you to do. Go and check, because it's a key component to getting the trade right. Now, if we've got clear direction, and for example, let's just let me just come back up the top here. You look at the live trade signals, and that's just going to refresh again. There we go. So what we're looking for when you do look at the pre-trade routine, okay, the first part of the equation is done for you. So you don't, you know what, if you're short of time, excuse me, and you're instead of like going through your charts and say I've got all the major currency pairs here on the hourly chart, I can flick over to the daily chart, or if I want to get a little bit uh, quicker on the whole thing, I can just go to euro and then let me just move that video panel. And then I can start to, put the euro together here, short term and long term, on on the same page, so we can sort of see what's going on. And then you do your analysis around what's going on here, right? So it's a quick and easy process. Flicking, but I like doing this more so than just looking at the majors on the chart. So right, and this isn't rocket science by any stretch. You've got the short-term trend, right, is up. Okay, the long-term trend, well, you know what? It's at a threshold where this thing is ready to go either way. And just while I'm there, would I adjust that trend line? Right now where it is, I would, because it's sort of right. It's come back to retest the trend line, but it's right at the market level. And if I would actually throw this little trend line in here, because that's what the market's going to be looking at, is where are these highs and where does it come in? I'll just keep it as orange. But so you can sort of start to see here a bit of a picture. Yeah, the euro has been going up. We had a flush out. It's going up here. So technically, yeah, the first part of the pre-trade routine, it is covered, right, on the live signals. Okay, so if I came into euro and I didn't want to go through my charts, I could go back through. Well, actually, you know what? This is actually where a little bit of, so let me just say that the live signals are completely objective, right? And because they don't factor in specific trend lines, we are using the bull bear pivot line as the key decision whether an instrument is going up or down, right? So if we have a look at the charts here at the moment, right, and this is where you need to use a little bit of nous, trading nous, right? You can see on the hourly chart, right? Euro is actually going up, right? This is going to help us fine tune the perfect trade setup. Okay, but right now the sort of price action that's been going on, it's just below the bull bear pivot line, which suggests if we wanted to quantify if this is going up or down, then I would say, you know what, right now it's going down, right? Short term wise. Okay, so let's just make sure you get the 70-hour simple moving average. This is one thing I'd be looking at and going, yeah, okay, it's going down now, but if we had some numbers, would that be going up? And this is where you got to use your technical analysis, right? So the perfect trade setup is coming back to this. I don't want to lose sort of my train of thought. Is basically looking at direction. We want to get very clear direction, right? Now, let me just skip this part because this is what you need to be looking at each day when we do look at the live trade signals, because that is not factored in. And this could be this secret ingredient. And why I'm holding this presentation today is because we've got the US CPI numbers, right? Which is going to give us very clear direction and momentum, or potentially could give us that, right? Don't sort of go in thinking this is the big one, this is the big one. It can be, but also factor in this may come out just as expected. Otherwise, you're going to get frustrated. Performance anxiety kicks in. You're like, oh, that was the big one, and I didn't get anything out of it. So CPI, we'll come back to that. Now, technical levels. Okay, so well, let's come up here. Entry and timing. Momentum is a huge part of it. So now, when I'm sort of looking at a perfect trade setup, it's where all the ducks line up. So if we have an instrument which is going up, right? Now, on our current setup, I would say you've got support and resistance trend lines, right? Plus, both instruments are going up, which means both instruments are above the bull bear pivot line. This would be a key component to really nailing the market direction, okay? And it's not on, the bull bear pivot line isn't on the pre-trade routine. Now, also, so you got those components, and then you're sort of factoring out, okay, that's 40%. I've got 40% of the answer, right? Immediately. That's what the live trade signals is giving you straight up. It's a great starting point for a trade. Then you come in and look at the technical aspects. Now, this is where you could probably have, you got the ball bear pivot line or a trend line. If we've got technical support or resistance in play that goes with the trading opportunity, then that's another key component. And that can add up to 20 or 30%. If you're just trading at market, right? Maybe something less because it's sort of, you're just trading sort of mid-range or wherever it might be. And then you've got the other component here, which is momentum, right? So you could get another 40%, 40 or 50% here, right, of the trade. Now, are there any trades that are 100%? Yeah, there are, but they're very hard to get into sometimes, right? When there's a massive news release, and you can see it going down, you're like, but where the hell do I get in, right? To try and manage your risk management. So there are trades, but anything above 80%, you're starting to get into an excellent trade. Above 90%, you're looking really good, right? So, say for instance, even if we cut that technical aspect there, the entry and timing to 40%, then you can come back in. So on our charts, right? Sorry, let me just come back to the live signals so you can sort of equate to what we're looking for. Sterling, right? Let's just focus on sterling. It's going up short term, long term, right? But the signal at the moment is not ideal for what we're looking for. We're looking for a buy signal, right? But this whole line here is that first part of the pre-trade routine factored in. What we're waiting for is the timing, right? And so, maybe it's time for me to refresh the pre-trade routine and just include a few other components in there, like the bull bear pivot line, because if we come back and I just get up, let's have a look at sterling since it is in play and we've got everything working for us. Okay, so let me just delete a couple of trend lines. So what I'm saying to you is there's an extra component here that you can actually get some greater confidence in. I think this bottom one's not going to do it for me, but this is what I do, right? So when I draw trend lines, I could see that the second line was going to be the starting point, but I'll always draw both trend lines. Start at the bottom and work your way up. So I get to here, and we know Sterling's had a bit of a flush out. Maybe I put that orange because it's not sort of massively in play. Let me just come over here. Okay, we've got a little top out at the top. Okay, so we've got this short-term trend line right now. What I'm saying is if we've got it's going up, right? And it's obviously not in the ideal position, and it's going up. Let me just wind that out. Right, so the price is currently, it's very close to it, but it's just above the bull bear pivot line, and it's above it on this chart here as well, on the daily chart. So even though it's broken down through a support trend line, overall, if I had to quantify is sterling still going up or down, it's the 200-day moving average that would determine that for me, right? And that's like, what is that, 430 or 40 points below. So we've got a bit of work to do. Now, sterling, do we adjust the trend line here? Well, it's a bit of this is where the subjective side of it comes in. And that's why it's not on the list here, on the live signals, because this is completely objective. I don't want anything to sway me because when I'm looking for the perfect trade setup, I'm looking for all these components to line up, right? Sterling, I want direction. It does tell you where momentum is, so it gives you an idea. It is going up, right? But we're getting the wrong signal here, right? So that's something that you need to consider because that means we haven't got the perfect trade set up yet, right? When this gets into a buy zone, we are getting into it, right? Because so what I'm trying to do is, and I don't want to sort of keep repeating myself. Maybe it's just the cough medicine that's doing it. Is look at the pre-trade routine, and we can see very clearly if we have all of these things lined up. We've got a key macro driver, and we've got the technical levels, plus we've got momentum on our side. This is the perfect trade. So when you are looking at the live signals, what are we missing, right? Well, this is where it becomes a little bit easier because you got sterling. Okay, good, bullish. I need to know these things. ideally, well, not ideally, for a perfect trade setup, you want the short-term alert or long-term alert both in the buy zone, right? Could you imagine having those two in the buy zone? And then you look at the, okay, sterling's great. Let's just have a look at the what's coming out. Then you get the fundamental data like the US CPI numbers, okay, fitting the equation. And that's when we really start to hit it out of the park because this is a trade which would be well above 90%, if not, you know, is there a trade above 100%? I reckon there is. When everything lines up, as I said, they're usually hard to get into because it's the trend is racing that hard, the or the instrument in the direction of the move that you can't get into it, right? So the perfect trade setup, you're looking at your charts, right? If I'm looking at my charts and I'm looking at the calendar, all I'm looking for is clear direction, right? And then you're looking for so technicals, I'm looking for a very clear technical setup. And then we overlay that with fundamentals. Does that line up with the direction on the charts, right? Because if you've got a technical setup where an instrument is trending, right? We're trending here. And then, so not only trending, we also get the economic data and we have a trend line in place. That entry there is just like dumb and dumber, right? You just got to get into that. If we have, so US CPI numbers coming out weak, sterling is going to kick into gear, straight back up, and you're back into play, right? And in actual fact, I can tune up that daily chart here. Okay, since it's sort of rallied, what's that rallied 300 points off the lows, and we've got this, if anything, same as that hourly chart. This is what I was sort of just spotting as I was looking at that. No, you could, I mean, that's just to the recent sort of post day, but since there's no other resistance levels on the top side, that's probably a key one to be focusing on, right? Because when there's nothing around, that becomes the major level here, right? So if I look at there, 134.68, pretty close to the hourly and daily resistance levels. So just coming back to just to sort of match these up because there's, as I said, there's if you're looking at the pre-trade routine, there's just a couple of things that you know as I said, most people I talk to when I mention the pre-trade routine, they're like, "What is that?" I'm like, "Well, it used to be the go-to, right? Because this does all the work for you. Now we've come into the age of tech, we can now sort of set up something that actually does the first part of the equation for us, or most of it is. So your job now is basically the perfect trade is to sort of see what's coming out, and this does the work for you, right? Sterling going up. We're waiting for the alerts. We don't have the like the official alerts. One alert is great. Two is awesome. And then you get the economic data matching the bullish direction, right? I mean, it's once again, this isn't, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here. I'm just trying to make it clearer to you what the perfect trade setup is. And you will see opportunities, and they may be not necessarily rare, but sort of once a week or once every 2 weeks or maybe once a month, where you have a very clear forecast. You get very clear alerts that are matching the forecast, and then you get the economic numbers matching as well. That is the perfect trade, right? All we've got to do, and why it's the perfect trade, we can also put technical analysis on top of that to really give it greater clarity. It's the perfect trade because we do have entries with the alerts, right? Now, as I said, sometimes a perfect trade setup, so Sterling was racing to the top side, looks great, but you've got no entries. It's hard to get into unless you've got a technical level, right? So if you see Sterling, if we get weaker US CPI numbers today, you see Sterling racing to the top side, have we got, and we don't see the alerts? Well, the next best thing for us to replace the the probability factor that the alerts give us is also a technical level, which we do have, right? So just make sure you think of it when you are trading. Okay, you've got okay, I've got levels here, And this is the luxury of actually not only just sort of hooking up to the signals, but then going through the courses and understanding technical analysis will give you the edge to be able to come in and go, you know what? I've got an awesome trade here, but I haven't got the alerts. Like someone who's a little bit lazy may not see the opportunity. Whereas if you've got technical levels, trend lines, well, it takes care of the alert, right? And it gives you a very clear entry level. But so you must be able to see now the absolute ducks nuts trade, sterling, short term and long term going up. You get alerts. Okay, you've got an alert, short term alert going up, and you've got a long term alert going up as well. And you also have a resistance trend line on the top side. Okay, trend line. Now we're looking at well over 100% probability of success. And why is this important? Because when you see these opportunities, that's the time to really launch, right? Don't just get suckered into, and I don't mean suck it in, but don't just get into the routine of seeing an alert and jumping on it. If I see a bit of a mixed, okay, I really do a bit of homework, and I've sort of been shying away from some of those. But just because you see opportunities here, instruments with very clear direction, just because we don't get the alert doesn't mean there's a trade there. Because if the economic numbers match up and we've got trend lines in play, that can substitute the short-term and long-term alerts, right? And if they're all in there, plus you've got the trend lines and everything else going for you, economic data and trend lines, well, these are the perfect trades that we're looking for, right? So when you come back to your charts, and we know the US CPI numbers, right? We've got these numbers coming out. They are impacting most instruments. Obviously, the major currency pairs will be front and center. You are going to have a front row seat here, and all we're doing is with your analysis leading up to the data. And I'm always sort of getting these sort of questions. Hey, what do you think we should trade? Which one? Or people are just trading their favorite instrument instead of looking for the best technical setup, right? Which is really what we're looking to do. We're trying to look for the best setup that gives us the opportunity to get in at a lower risk, because that's, if you've got technical levels, it's going to be a lower risk profile. And that means more dollars for us. And it's just like, like a low risk or almost no risk trade is a great one to be hitting with more capital in your account.
Brad.
Yeah.
So for that particular trade, since it's not completely set up for Primetime Pro, would you use Trendline Trader
Oh,
or
100%.
wait for Primetime Pro?
That's a really good question, Leonard. I would use Trendline Trader. And at the same time, I would be. So you're waiting. Well, actually, two things. If you do have the signal, right? So we're looking at sterling, and we've got a short-term alert. It's in the buy zone. I would definitely set up Primetime Pro. You might diversify and go, you know what? I'm going to have two charts up, one using Trendline Trader to get in, because the Primetime Pro is more likely to stay in the trend longer than your Trendline Trader trade. So, but that's a really good question, because when it comes down to execution, which is, we can do all the analysis we like, but how do you get in, right? If we've got trend lines, like this is going up and we've got resistance trend lines above the market and we're not getting the signals, you've definitely got to use Trendline Trader, right? Or, you know what, trade yourself. But I would say, even if you're trading, as in you're sitting in front of the screens, still set up Trendline Trader, right? Your job is to manage the trade, and we've got tools to execute for us. Hitting the market yourself when the price is all over the shop can be a bit nerve-wracking. I see a lot of traders sort of hesitating. Next thing you know, it's 20 points higher. And they go, oh shit, I just got to get in. Then it's 10 points lower. Then all of a sudden their brain's fried. So use the tools even if you are in front of the screens. So no alert, Trendline Trader for sure. Or T-Rex if you're that way inclined. But Trendline Trader would do a better job. And then when the signal does come into play and you get a signal on that move, right? Because what would happen is, generally, say we do get weaker US CPI numbers tonight, sterling goes up, right? And where it's sort of set stochastically, we may not get a signal, and then it just takes off. So you want to be in the trade. Where this comes back into play, the signals will come back in about 12, 16, 18 hours later. That's when the trend kicks into gear, and that's when Prime Time Pro takes over. Okay, so it's like right on the release of the numbers is not ideal for Prime Time Pro to execute, right? I mean, the fact is, if we did have once again, sterling bullish, and we get in the buy zone here for these two. It means sterling, right? It's been held down, and it's ready to ricochet higher, right? So that's what I'm saying. If you do see a buy zone alert before the numbers or even after it, you're definitely on that. But if you don't, use Trendline Trader. Don't miss the initial trade, and then as soon as you're in that trade, keep an eye on the alerts because when the alerts kick in, these are about a day after the trend is in play, right? Depending on how variant the data is. If it's super weak numbers, well, then it's probably going to take a couple of days. But that's where use the execution tools to get in immediately, and then Primetime Pro can jump in and take over the managing the whole trend side of things, right?
So
The
then you'd do a range trade on that for the lower trend line and a break for the upper on Trendline Trader.
Well, this is the thing. Actually, this is another good question, Leonard, because so this is a good one, right? So what everyone just so everyone understands, right? The trend is up, right? And the trend is our friend. So we're looking to get into the trend. So what Leonard is looking for is to go with the trend. This is where you could use a little bit deeper knowledge, right? There's one number in the market that globally is the key number, and it's the US CPI numbers attached to the Fed. Fed being the sort of central, the main focal central bank for globally. It's one number that can alter the trend. So for me, the easiest trade is with the trend, but very hard to be buying on, say, stronger CPI numbers when there's pressure on the downside. I wouldn't do that, right? You're looking for a trade to the top side, and this is what you can do, right? And I'm not trying to cover all bases here, but if you're looking for a trade, let me just change that. So this thing is going up. You're like, okay, I can see exactly where it is. I can put Trendline Trader on here, and you know what? You can go to sleep, right? You don't even actually need to be awake. If the market is sort of 30 points from that trend line, perfect, right? You've got the trend line set up. Now, as an independent trader, you're like, right, so what happens now? If we get a really strong number, you're going to see a flush out of the trend, right? And because we have a trend line close, that could offer us up a short-term trading opportunity to the downside, should you be looking for that. Now, do I cover all bases? I have done for years, right? But then you get sort of accustomed to because you know what it does internally. You're looking at the trend and you're looking at the whole idea, like the setup and the live signals are telling us that this thing's going up. The best trade is to get long, right? So you're either looking to get long when this thing is oversold, or where else can I get long? I could get long and put a small trade on, say 15 points above the market, a pending order. We know there's a bit more risk involved there, or we could get long above the trend line. That works for me because it's like when that trend line breaks, the whole market's going to be sort of buying. That's a lower risk. Plus, when it comes to me being like a stable, compliant trader, I love a checklist. I love everything to line up. I love it when the ducks line up. So we've got buying, right? So, excuse me. So to take what I was just explaining there, a bit of subjectivity out of it, right? My job is to execute trades, right? This thing is going up. And this is where you can sort of get a little bit hard-headed. Remember, I was just saying there, like, yeah, there's a potential on the downside. This is a big number. It could squeeze the trend. Yeah, yeah. But if you want to just be right on the money, excuse me, then you're like, okay, but I'm a buyer, right? This number if this number comes out strong, sort of weak for this sterling number, and I've got a technical level and the timing is right, well, I've got everything I need. So maybe you don't need to go in and start messing around because sell does not fit the perfect trade setup, right? So you're sort of partially right there, Leonard, with trying to get long on the downside. But if it comes under pressure, it's a tough call because we won't know until after the fact whether it's going to keep going down. But this is not like a massive but the thing is, right? We got to, this is where you need to know what the numbers are. And once again, you go through the course material, you find out what the CPI numbers are, right? And if we're looking at the CPI numbers, looking at 2.8, the range 2.5 to 2.9, say for instance, we got a 2.9, right? Well, is it going to be enough to change the trend? I wouldn't think so. Not at the moment. But what it might do is give the dollar a little bit of strength. And this is where you can come in and sort of look at the reaction in the market because you know how you were saying there, Leonard, you're like, okay, so I'm going to buy a break on the top side, makes complete sense, and maybe buy a range trade back towards support. If the data is slightly stronger, but not enough to really shake things up, that could work. But you know what I would do? Instead of like betting on that, because you got to buy sort of before it hits there or wait and see, I would put Prime Time Pro into play and let it do the execution, right? Because there's so much subjectivity that goes through your brain as you're trying to execute. Um, you know what I mean? It's one of those things that let the tools do the job for you. Your job is to work out, is to read and interpret the signals, right? And I'm still waiting for these guys to sort of tune up a couple of things, get out some clear notifications to you guys and all that sort of stuff. But right now, it isn't there. So let's just work out what we've got. Your job is to interpret what's going on here. Now, you can do it by looking at your charts, right, over here, or come into the live signals, focus on what's what, right? And if you find an instrument you like and you've got a good technical setup as well, you focus on that. You're looking at, okay, where are my entries? Well, I'm not getting the entries here on the alerts, right? And you know there's US CPI numbers coming out. And then you look at the technical levels, right? That's now we're getting into trades where there's confluence with everything, right? And you are all we need is, and quite often the perfect trade, all we need, as I said, you either got alerts or not, right? But we have trend lines as well. All we need is the data to fit the puzzle, to fit the picture, and we make money. And that's what can be quite frustrating sometimes because we just don't get the penny to drop. We just don't get the numbers that we need, right? So to me, like numbers 2.8, right? Closer to 2.5, definitely under 2.7. They're under pressure to cut, right? So there's the perfect trade is pretty much upon us, right? And what I'm talking about is looking at, and there's more than just one, right? Sterling, it is going up. We don't have these at the moment, but we do have the next best thing, which are trend lines, right? And that is going to be a perfect trade setup. And what we're talking about with a perfect trade setup, it's a no stress entry level. Okay, so so that's what we've got with that setup, right? Any other questions there? That was a really good question, Leonard. Um, do you guys sort of get where I'm coming from? I'm sort of as I go through this. I mean, I get my brain sort of thinking to the point where I'll go, you know what? I might just tweak the pre-trade routine to incorporate a few extra things because unless you've sort of at this coaching session, you're like, wow, okay, I've got some really important things here that aren't on the site that connect the live signals with the pre-trade routine. So you know exactly what to look for, right? So that is something that I might just do a bit of a tweak and give you guys a look because what I can see is, right, the first part of the equation that we have on the live signals is a lot of these things, right? And putting these next to each other, you can sort of see straight up without doing anything, we've got a 60% like probability of success just with an alert and the direction. Now, you can actually obviously improve that with throwing in some macros and maybe a trend line, right? And this is like a small amount of homework to do before you go to place trades to work out where that next best trade is looking for the perfect setup. So if you are, I mean, I'll be doing this as I go through, probably more in the European session, just having a look at my charts, and I'll be posting this on the Discord. Is having a look, right? There's a lot of different things, right? See how most of these, we got sterling looking great, but the rest of them are crosses. Now, that doesn't mean we don't get moves on the crosses. And this is where we were making some good cash uh, earlier, sort of even last month, right? If we find an instrument, this is another part of the puzzle of the perfect trade setup. Say, for instance, say we got strong comments out of the Bank of England, right? And, sterling's going up. And then there's negative comments which potentially could happen today from the RBA. That's going down. So sterling Aussie could be a great trade even with the CPI numbers coming out, right? If you do not see, right, a perfect sort of trade setup or close to it, on especially with backing from the live signals on the majors, well, go and look elsewhere because there's other trades. Because just because the US numbers are coming out doesn't mean sterling and Aussie don't go up. But if there's very clear, if any of these instruments at all show their cards, so to speak, right? Show us, the economic numbers, say in Australia or New Zealand, come out weak at the same time that US numbers come out weak. Well, this thing's probably not going to move much, but these will move much definitely against the Aussie and Kiwi. And that's where we've been nailing Euro Aussie, Sterling Aussie, Euro Kiwi, Sterling Kiwi. So if you don't see the setup when you come into looking at an event like the US CPI numbers, well, the answer is in front of you. Do not get involved, right? You can actually have a look. And if you've got trend lines around, well, then by all means, that gives you permission to sort of jump in. But don't fight the market. Let it come to you, right? And I've spoken to a few guys about this. The signals are what they are. They're objective. They will tell you, and I know everyone wants them every day, and we want to see a quick flurry of trades here, but the market goes in a cycle where it delivers, right, consistently and then stops. And you're like, what happened to the signals? Why did they switch off? Well, this is because when you come to the market, these things go through periods, like say, like here, where it's not really going anywhere. And that's not a good trading environment anyway, because it's like just drifting. The signals are telling you to stay away and when to actually come back and trade. And then you can put the last couple of components of the perfect trade setup, which is the economic numbers, and throw some trend lines in there. Just give it greater clarity for yourself. All right. How does that all fit with everyone's understanding of what we're doing?
Sounds good.
All right. Leonard's still alive. The
Yeah,
okay.
yes.
No, there's Gav. He's awake. No, so that's it, right? So that's all we're looking for. So when if you're in the Discord and you're looking around and you're like, I've got a really good setup here. Like what you could be doing is I've got, sterling, plus I've also got a trend line, and if the economic numbers fit in, right, we've got a really good trade. The actual good thing, if we've got trend lines and there's no economic numbers, well, then the signals are going to be on fire, right? I've found after monitoring this, the signals, when there's big economic numbers come out, everything sort of discombobulates for a bit and then it settles down. That's what I'm saying. It's usually like a day later that you'll be busy with putting trades on all over the place because you'll have it's like dust in the air, it settles. We can see clearly what's going on, and that's what the live signals are picking off. So that's what we want to be looking at. But one thing, as I was just saying there, don't disregard getting into these crosses if we do have clear sentiment from some of the other instruments. And I say that because today we could potentially have a negative sentiment. I know the RBA's factored to cut rates, but it's more the next leg of sentiment, which could come from their press conference, which is, holy shit, we've screwed this up. We've got to keep cutting, right? Something crazy like that would really give the Aussie a negative spin. So that would mean Aussie goes down against the US. If we get, really weak US CPI numbers, well, then Aussie probably stabilizes. Everything else goes up. You got a great trade on sterling Aussie even though it's not the dollar pair, right? Hopefully that makes a bit of sense to you because when you have key data out like this is the time to be really jumping in on the crosses, right? And the key to it is this puppy here, but understanding just when you do look at the signals, okay, there's two things here that aren't in there. It's the echo data, right? And we're talking the key numbers and obviously trend lines, right? These are two things that you can add to really take your trade into that perfect sort of profile. Okay. All right, guys. Well, that's a little bit of a wrap. I just want to sort of bring that into excuse me, bring that into sort of your frontal cortex, just because we do have a situation today where that could really play up into or play into our sort of firing line. All right. Any questions before I finish up?
No, I'm good.
Sorry, I did actually miss the questions on the thing there. You asked yours, Leonard. That was good. Denny's was just saying direction plus catalyst plus technical entry plus timing equals perfect trade setup. That is correct. So that's good. So basically, guys, this is the hardest part, right? We know what the perfect trade setup is, and that's what the signals are trying to sort of get us into that zone. Then we can just do a quick cross check. It's just about being patient, right? Like they just don't. The old saying, and if you've been to the workshops in the past, 10 months of grind for 2 months of gravy. The markets are perfect or close to it for about 2 months when you add up the perfect days over the course of 12 months, right? So we don't have these perfect trades every day. If we do, scream from the mountaintops, let us know, and we can all jump on and hit those things. All right. So that's where we are, guys. It's a good thing to know, great knowledge. You can always improve your overall performance, and this is hopefully one way we can do it. All right, chaps, have a good day, and I'll get this video up on the live session archive, and we'll see how today plays out. It's pretty exciting. All right, guys, have a good one. Cheerio.
You too, Brad. Thanks.
Thanks,
See you,
Brad.
man.